Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Onyx with my fabulous co-hosts here.
Hi, I'm Kilobyte.
And I'm Clickbait.
And on today's special episode, we have another wonderful special guest with us, Jason Konopisos-Alvarez.
Hello, how's it going? Good to be here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my
Yeah, thank
pleasure.
you.
It's so good to have you.
We're very
Thanks.
excited.
And for those who don't know, they are the voice of Shockwave and Transformers 1.
Whoop,
My eye!
Everybody's going to be like, what is... Oh, okay. All right. And then if they haven't seen the movie, then they'll be like, I get it now.
Go see the movie. It's a good
Go see the
time.
movie.
It's very good.
Very
Shall
fun.
we get started?
I think so.
Absolutely.
Fantastic, Kilo. You have the first question.
Yeah, so this is the simplest question. So let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, wow. That's I've done a couple podcasts, and this is the first time anyone's asked me about me.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, that's like the
Crazy.
whole point.
They just want to talk Shockwave.
It's only
So-
logical, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
it is.
god.
I was wondering how many times we were going to get into the, using the puns, but we're right into it.
A lot.
So my name is Jason Konopisos-Alvarez. I am half Greek, half Cuban. I grew up in South Texas, a little town. It used to be a little town called Sugarland, Texas, south of Houston. And, I went to college, got a degree in psychology and philosophy, and afterwards was very disillusioned by working and just didn't really ever feel like I was connected to anything. But I knew I really always loved films, and it's kind of one of those things where you just, is that you or me?
I don't
think
know where
that's
that
you.
song is coming.
Not me.
It's not me. I was like, okay, we're getting it.
I
was like,
no-
oh, it's a musical now.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about
That's
that.
great.
No,
Oh,
we
you're
should-
Anyway, so there's something else about me. I don't understand technology, even though I'm a genius scientist robot. So yeah, so I got out of college and I was working at this company and just like not liking doing the corporate thing. And I saw all my friends would always have cash on them and they were just like hanging out a lot and having fun. So I was like, I'm gonna try this waiting tables thing. And I was horrible at it and I didn't last long. So somebody around the time when I was working in a restaurant, somebody asked me to do an open mic stand-up comedy, and that was sort of my foray into entertainment. I did stand-up. I started doing stand-up regularly, and then VH1 used to shoot movies in Houston, and I got my first little role in the MC Hammer Life Story. And then there was a little company doing voice dubbing for animation. I started doing some animation like Slayer's Gorgeous and Blue Seed, and that kind of like started it. So that sort of started my acting career. And then in 2009, I moved to LA and I sort of took a hiatus from stand up, not on my own behalf. It was sort of like the industry decided that I didn't need to work for about 7, 8 years. And then lo and behold, I connected with a new agent, AVO Talent, and they saw potential in me and they started getting me out there and I started booking stuff. And then one day, I got that magical call that sort of is the reason why I'm talking to y'all right now.
That's fantastic. That's
Awesome.
quite the journey.
Yeah. Lots
Yeah.
of twists and turns.
Because when you're, I assume are you guys from out here? From out?
We're all over the place.
Okay,
We're out in space, so we are really
Oh.
out there.
I'm sorry, I forgot. uh, forgot that y'all are on Cybertron right now, unless you're vacationing on some other planet. But yeah, so it was always something. I mean, y'all can identify this from being on Cybertron. Like Hollywood just seems so far away. Like it seems
Yes.
like
Yeah.
another world.
Yeah.
And so growing up in South Texas, like to think of ever being in movies, let alone a movie that I was such a fan of when I was a little kid, like engrossed in it, like being on the bus, riding in the bus, going home, and it's like 2:15 and I know Transformers starts at like 2:30 and I'm like sweating because I'm like, am I gonna miss the opening? Like what's gonna happen? So it just seems like not even a dream, it just seems like an impossibility. sometimes. And so to kind of be here is sort of strange and wonderful.
That's awesome.
To quote the famous Shia LaBeouf, "Don't let your dreams just be dreams."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do
Don't-
it.
Just
Just
do
do
it.
it.
Yes. But you kind of already segued into our next question, and that is what first brought you into the world of Transformers or brought you back if you took like a hiatus?
So when I was a little kid, I was super into Transformers. I collected all the Transformers. I watched the TV show. I watched the 86 movie. And, it was just such a, I think it was the predominant toy of my childhood. I can't think of anything else. When I was really little, there was like a little He-Man, but like Transformers really, as y'all know, it brought like a next level coolness because you have the narrative story, but you have these action figures that transform, and it was just such a unique toy for a kid
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s to have, and I think it elicited a love for it because of that, because it was just like it just was kind of like the perfect toy.
Like a 2-in-1 toy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I know. I'm like, I sound weird because I'm like, it transformed because it's a transformer, but really it did. It was like just a really perfect toy.
Yeah.
And so then, you grow up, and I wasn't a huge comic book reader, and honestly, I wasn't even aware of how big the Transformers universe had become. And then, of course, Michael Bay comes out with his first live action film. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I got to see that because I love Transformers, loved Transformers as a kid. And it's something so novel and unique to see
Yeah.
that brought to life. And then oddly enough, somebody else pointed this out to me. I actually was in Dark of the Moon as Josh Duhamel's body double.
Oh,
Oh, that's
really?
great.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, so it was an interesting thing where it's like, something that I kind of forgotten about. It was only one day of work, and it was a scene where he was like running through debris. And I believe, from what somebody else told me, I need to go back and watch it, but he was being chased by Shockwave, and I believe that was the first time Shockwave appeared in the live action.
Yes.
That's pretty
yes,
funny.
It was fate. It was fate. You were
It was
linked.
fate. That's awesome.
All
You
the
know?
calculations were here.
So that was pretty wild. And then,
So cool.
this kind of like I said, I got the call one day, and Transformers came back into my life and sort of has taken over my life for the last 6 months or so.
That's awesome.
That's
That's really
awesome.
cool.
Can you, continuing us forward, can you tell us a little bit about your process when preparing for the role of Shockwave? And do you have any favorite moments or lines as the character?
So when I found out I got the role, I mean, of course, it's like intimidating because other people have done the role. It's a very beloved character, and I always tell people, like as a child, people ask me, "Did you love the character as a child?" And I was like, "Not really," because when you're a kid, you have to like the Autobots because
The good guys.
Yeah, the good guys. Yeah.
And the cartoon is much more of a vaudevillian type thing in that you have good and evil, and it's pretty clear cut because you don't want little kids like loving Megatron and wanting to take
Right.
over the world and enslave humanity.
Well, I think we deviated from that path at some point because there's a lot of Megatron fans out there.
It was a thing where Shockwave. I remember it was a very cool aspect of the cartoon that Shockwave would appear with his calls or his transmissions, and so he was kind of a special character in that. So he stuck out to me. I remembered him distinctly. So as soon as I found out, I started doing research about the other voice actors and a little bit about the various narratives around the character through the different iterations. And I wanted to pay respect to all those because you have to. But at the same time, I really wanted to dive into the understanding that this is, in the way that Orion Pax is not Optimus Prime because he hasn't become Optimus Prime, I
Right.
wanted to sort of bring that to Shockwave also. And I think the director, Josh Cooley, who's amazing, I think he had all that in mind also. And really, so through that recording, finding what is sort of has a reverence for
Hmm.
previous iterations, but at the same time, like bring something a little bit new and somewhere to go so we can see his journey to becoming the character that we all know so well.
Yeah. That's a really cool
Yeah.
take on it. I think that's
Hmm.
I
really
like it.
fun. They nailed that. Very, very fun to watch him, in like a slightly less serious, less monotone form than, we've seen him before. And you did a great job delivering that. He's kind of definitely much more of a logical character. He's definitely a little bit more kind of black and white of a guy, but he's still got some of that depth to him that he hasn't lost yet as the Shockwave that we kind of know from other iterations, which is really cool.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know if this is the correct term, but he does feel a little bit more alive than other iterations in the sense that in the comics, in most versions, he doesn't really show emotions. And in this one, we can still see that he's still emotional and kind of connected there. And slowly, we can eventually we'll see them transition into the this is what I want to do, and that's it. If you get in my way, you're done.
Yeah,
Hmm.
reach
Hmm.
reach that final form, if you will. And I think that's the interesting part and exciting part about this, and why people were wanting to see an origin story that sort of delved into this world.
Yeah. Well, for our next question, and this could be either for films or voice acting or your comedy stand-up, who has been your biggest inspiration when tackling all your different um,
Wow,
projects?
that's a long list of people.
That's
I
fair. That's
I
fair.
I'm such a film buff, and I'm such a admirer of performers that I could give you. I'll just rattle off some names that were huge influences from. I'll start with personal. So a personal big time influence to me was Charles Durning, who I directed in a film, and we became friends. And he was just that consummate character actor. Somebody asked me the other day, like, who I like really like, if I could pick a career, like whose career would I want to emulate? And, coming back to the whole Transformers thing and like how things have sort of like, changed with being a part of this world, is John Turturro, because he's
Hmm.
just had such a beautiful career, beautiful diverse career, and did such fun things, and very rarely just plays himself.
Hmm.
And then, I was raised by my grandparents, and I grew up with a lot of older performers' influence, like Lucille Ball. I adored Ball, and I don't think people realize her contribution to film and television
Oh, it
is
was tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
gigantic.
massive.
I mean,
Hmm.
they don't get it. Like, we would not have Star Trek, we would not have a lot of other things without her. And then Star Trek, birthed other things and influenced other things that, in the sci-fi world, that we have to appreciate for her decision. And then going farther back, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, just there's so many, and I feel like there's so many amazing actors and performers and humans that you can draw inspiration and influence from, and get like, even if it's something little, it's still like a brick in the wall of building sort of your home as an actor. Not to
Hmm.
sound
Yeah.
cheesy, but, and gosh, I could go on and on. There's some Jeff Bridges. I'm a big fan of Jeff Bridges.
He's cool. He's done
Yeah,
a lot of really fun stuff.
there's just so many actors that I really admire.
A lot of cool actors, a lot of cool
Yeah.
work that has been done over the ages. Well, moving on, if you had the chance to do anything with Shockwave, if there were to be a sequel, if you had
Not
full
if, when.
if you had full creative control over what happened with Shockwave in this sequel, what would you want to see him do? Or what would you do with him?
Wow.
We like to make you think with these questions.
No, trust me, I've already thought about this.
Oh, let's hear it. I'm excited
I
now.
I've thought about this a ton. It's like what I always was like. I nonstop think about this. I just wonder how many hours you guys have. Um,
Strap in,
so
listeners.
so this is the thing. Like with all, let's imagine a world where this Transformers 1 gets a trilogy, right? And maybe a spin-off TV series, and then maybe another trilogy, and then five more
Perfect world.
trilogies.
Perfect
Yeah,
world.
world. Yeah. Can we live in that one?
So I think I this is the thing. I think we got to see a side of Megatron and humanization of him where and then, Brian Tyree Henry's amazing performance.
Mhm.
I think that the dynamic of having, and I'm trying not to give any spoilers away, we have Autobots and we have Decepticons. We have these two factions. And of course, I can imagine in the second one that we will retouch on a lot of the same themes from the first one, because that's ever present in relation to the unity of the species called Transformers. Within the warring factions, within the factions that are split, I feel like the exploration of the conflicts within those factions, influenced by some of, the narratives from the comics and other media, there's such a wealth for Shockwave. And
Absolutely.
I would really like to go into, some of the stuff with his, usurping of Megatron, his crossing into the character we know from the character we've seen in Transformers 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think that much like some of the great, Star Wars, how each film had its own sort of, in the original, had its own tone and its own sort of like, not seriousness, but like the stakes and the darkness of it. I feel like Shockwave has a lot of potential to show still a friendly to the audiences, but a little bit more serious, darker aspect of his story arc that shows why he becomes who he is.
That'd be
And I
so
also
cool.
and also the conflict between, and whatever dynamics might happen in relation to what's going on Cybertron, alliances made tentatively due to necessity, and how those all play out and how they play out. And I see him being a very influential figure, one due to his, just his strength, being an influence of it, but also like the intelligence and the dynamics, and eventually see like everybody's got their own perceptions and motivations of where they go and how those play out. So I know I'm kind of being a little bit vague, just because if I touch on something that somebody's actually like doing, I don't want them to like.
Yeah.
That's fair.
There's so much that Shockwave has done, both in comics, shows, and other movies, that like there's quite
Oh,
a
absolutely.
huge pool of opportunities for him to do, and there's also new things he could do, which would be
Yeah.
amazing to see.
Yeah. I mean, he continues the Decepticon side of the war on Cybertron as the leader when Optimus and Megatron take their battle off-world. There's so much that you could put in there to cover with him and his descent into his own madness.
Yes. And I feel like to do it justice, you have to go just a little bit dark,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
but you can still do it in a way that's like
Appropriate for
palatable.
kids.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not that, but
No,
like film
well,
appropriate.
Yeah, film appropriate and like appropriate for, who knows, maybe they'll be like, we want to do the
The R-rated Shockwave.
HBO spin-off series where we like really get into the depths and
Traumatize the next generation of children here. This will be
I
their
love that.
Optimus's
I'm here
death.
for it.
So our next question is, if you could voice any other character in this movie, who would you pick and why?
well, that's an easy question. I will voice guard number 2 because that's who I did voice.
Oh my
But-
gosh.
That's great.
I love that.
I mean, it's a numbered character, and often people are like, "Oh, it's a numbered character," but I had a lot of fun with that character, and hopefully, eventually, he finds a name, and maybe we can have some fun with that. But to ask me if there's another character I would like to voice in the movie,
Even if they weren't in the movie, if it's like a character that you're passionate about.
well, all right, I'm gonna give you a multiple answer to that one because that's tough. So, Starscream, of course, because Starscream's voice is so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Megatron, because Megatron is Megatron. If I was offered Optimus Prime, I don't think I could. I would be like, listen, guys, I can't do it. I'm like, Optimus Prime is, now it's Chris Hemsworth, but before it was Chris Hemsworth, it was that one guy named Peter, and
Yeah.
it would be. I mean, when you're a Helmsworth and you've already been Thor, okay, you can take on that mantle, but that mantle would be too big for me. Not that I'm, big enough to hold Megatron, but if you forced me, if you were like, you have to choose a character.
They just like casted
Megatron,
him as a
Jason.
guy who likes his axe.
Yeah. So and Megatron's just cool. But if you ask me about another character, let's find a character. I'm trying to think back to like my favorite toy. Like, one of my favorite when I was a kid was it? God, I'm gonna sound like
It's okay, we can help you.
the Jeep.
You're good. We got
The
you.
Jeep was Rawhide.
There's
Hound.
Hound.
The green
Hound.
Jeep. Yeah.
And
Hound.
Ironhide is the van.
Is like the red
Okay, so
van.
I'm combining two.
Yeah.
Okay, so I loved Hound when I was a kid.
Oh, that'd be so much fun.
The military kind of figure.
And that's kind of in my wheelhouse. Like, there's so many. Like, honestly, I did like 19 voices in Final Fantasy. And so I have a pretty good range of voices and a lot of times people are kind of like shocked at some of the voices that I can, because typically my voice is deeper. I would love to do any voices, but I especially love those ones that you can kind of have a little fun with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
wiggle
what
room.
Yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to bring to Shockwave, and I was afraid, honestly, because people I got online read thing. It's intimidating because the fan base
Yeah.
is like,
Hmm.
the fan base is like, don't mess up. So
You did a
You
fantastic
did great.
job.
You
I
did
very
great.
much appreciate
Yeah.
it.
thank you.
Most of the
That
fan
really-
base is very welcoming. So
Most
Yeah,
of them are.
no.
And if they're the ones that are not are very loud, and we have spend a decent amount of time on Twitter. I've seen nothing negative about Shockwave. So you
Yeah.
did a great
I've
job.
got, and that's an interesting thing I will say about the fan base is, and I apologize, I don't know how to turn off that pinging.
It's okay.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
So the fan base has been extremely positive. I haven't gotten any, like, I couldn't say a negative word about it. And even before, when the fans are expressing themselves, it isn't like what I've seen in other situations where, it's more of like a positive, like, do a good job, please do a good job, instead of like, we're going to get your home address if you don't.
Oh my
do a job.
gosh.
yeah, that's a
So-
little bit too much, but
Yeah, so the Transformers community has been really cool, and it's been fun to meet fans. Out of all of this, I think my favorite thing has been to meet fans. I had an interaction last night that was just like filled my heart. Actually, I had a couple recently, but I was at a donut shop at the AMC Universal, and the guy working there, really sweetheart, was taking our order, just a really happy person, and he saw my Transformer shirt and he was like, "Oh dude, I've seen the movie 2 times, it was amazing, like, have y'all seen it?" And my wife and I laughed and we were like, yeah, we've seen it about 7-8 times. So
I love that.
but we just, we've seen it, and we laughed, and I was like, "Who's your favorite character?" And he was, I think he said Soundwave, and I was like, "Well, who's your second favorite character?" And he was like, and he went through like 9 characters, and I was like, "Okay, who's your 10th favorite character?"
That's
And
good.
my wife is like dying laughing, and I, and so I just happened to have a little still card, and I asked him what his name was and wrote him a little autograph thing. And when we were leaving, I was like, "Hey, next time somebody asks you, will you consider saying Shockwave?" And he like kind of laughed and was like, "What?" And I handed him the card, and he like looked at it, and it took him a second to process. And then he was like, really, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You're that guy."
That's awesome.
So it was and then I went to Temecula Film Festival over the weekend, and I met a couple fans. I was there for a movie called The Unexpecteds directed by Alejandro Montoya Marin, and it's got Matt Walsh and Francisco Ramos, Chelsea Rendon, amazing cast. I was there for that, but I kind of couldn't help but peek into the Transformers thing, and then I started talking to people, and then people over here, and they're like, "Oh, are you blah blah blah," and I met like just really amazing people, and it's just a good feeling. It's such a good feeling to be a part of something that gives fun, and
Yeah.
Very well
It's kind of-
received.
it's
That's
kind of this cool
sweet.
feeling where it makes everyone sort of your family, because people You
Mhm.
automatically like, oh, they know you. So I can't imagine what it's like to be like somebody like Tom Cruise just constantly.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so sweet. That was such a wonderful story. I wanted to ask you because you already mentioned that Hound was one of your favorite characters. Do you happen to have two more favorite characters? Maybe Shockwave? Wink, wink.
Oh no, no, no. When I was a kid, I would say Shockwave was one of my favorite characters to play with and to like watch. Like I said, the transmissions would come in, and that was sort of like a special happening. And then the toy was really cool. When you asked me about my, another character, and I said Hound, that goes without saying that Shockwave is my number. I I do not want anyone ever to voice Shockwave ever again. I want to do everything. I don't
That'd be great.
I
I
don't
love
care if
that.
they do I don't care if they do like a Shockwave community theater play in Ketchikan, Alaska. I'm
That would
like
be
I'm gonna
great.
My
call them and be
premise.
like, hey, I'm gonna fly up and I'll do it. And they're gonna be like, well, we can't pay you. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm Shockwave.
I love that. That's awesome. He's super fun. So you did say that you had collected some of the toys as a child. What were your top three favorite toy figures then? Or if you have any now, you can do the ones you have now, but if you don't, then you can talk about the ones you had then.
Well, I think the number one would have to be, I'm sad to say this, but number one would have to be Soundwave, just because
Nice.
It is
the
cool.
cassettes, it was the Jaguar, there were three because there was one that you could do like a mail-in thing and they would send it to you. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that.
Yeah.
I remember
I don't know which
Maylin.
one that was, but I think it was
It's a
Rumble
while
and
ago.
Frenzy. Or
There's
Yeah,
was it the Buzz Laserbeak? Was Laserbeak the main?
I think Laserbeak came with it.
Technically, it was Buzzsaw who came with him, I think, right? Or maybe I've probably got it backwards at this
Yeah,
point.
I think it was
But
Butsa, but I'm sure
yeah.
we'll be able to put it on the video.
Yeah, we'll fact
Yeah,
check it.
we'll fix it in
We'll
post.
fix it in post.
Yeah, so the dynamic of that is like to have one robot and then have another robot come out. There's just the whole dynamic of Soundwave was cool, and like I really loved the toy. Megatron was awesome just because I'm a little boy, and like the gun and like the big silver figure
Mhm,
that
mhm.
was cool. And then I really liked when they came out with Rodimus Prime. I was kind of into that because it was so new, and that was towards the end of like me playing with. But that kind of I think Rodimus Prime, because that sort of signaled my last trip that I got one before I kind of got to an age where I stopped buying them. So that's kind of
Yeah,
I don't
good
think I've ever
answers.
heard
Those are
that
all
one
good
as an answer
figures.
before.
I
Yeah.
have not heard Rodimus either, but that's a good answer.
So, moving us forward, do you have any side projects you are currently working on that you are allowed to talk about? And it doesn't have to be Transformers related.
So I have a number of things. I actually have two things I can't talk about, but they're going to be out on HBO in December. So if you see something coming out around that time, it's probably got me in it somewhere.
Ooh,
Ooh.
mysterious. I like it.
I know, I'm very
Just vague enough,
um,
you won't know.
I am working on a video game slash media universe thing called Havoc, and you can find it at enterhavoc.com. Right now, it is a board game created by Zach Howe, and he calls it the love child of chess meets magic in
Okay.
a horror sci-fi universe. I've heard the board game is very fun. My brain doesn't allow me to play the board game because I get confused and it's overwhelming, but people that I've watched play it say it's amazing.
Sounds really fun.
So after that, we're going to do a digital version of the game, and then we're going to do an RPG version of the game, and then eventually, hopefully, a movie.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
Oh, that
I'm
sounds cool.
lending my voice to some of the characters, and I'm also giving them, what creative ideas I have. And we have something very exciting going on very soon. Hopefully, we have a person of high prestige who might come on with us. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Other than that, like I said, The Unexpecteds, which is making the festival circuit, and actually October 27th, that's a Sunday at 2 p.m., we are going to be at the ARPA International Film Festival.
Ooh, fun.
Please come out. We would love to have y'all. Anybody listening, we would love to have y'all. If this plays by that time.
What day is it?
October
October
27th.
27th?
October 27th.
Yeah, it
It's
might be a
two
little
Sundays from
tight.
now.
This might come out just 2 days afterwards.
Oh, okay. Well, then tell people to get their time machine.
There we go.
But
It always fixes
yeah,
things.
those and I'm working on stuff here and there and looking for the next project. Hopefully, I'll get a call from Paramount and they'll be like, "We need you to book your next 20 years for
Let's do
Shockwave."
it.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Do it. Sign
Let's
that
confirm it.
contract.
Kilo?
Well, earlier you mentioned that you did, I think it was 12 or 13 voices for Final Fantasy. So I scrolled through your IMDb page and I found that you also did some voices for heroes or some heroes in Final
It's
Fantasy.
the show. The show,
It's
Kilo.
the show, the
show
heroes, the
heroes.
shows. So which one's been your favorite voice to do for Final Fantasy?
In Final Fantasy, I did a lot of additional voices, which are just like real quick snippets. So none really stick out to me, but I'll tell you, I really enjoyed Starfield. I did voices for that video game,
Okay.
and
I know
I
which one
played a
it is.
character named Alban Lopez, who was a side mission. And as far as voices in general, man, I like everything. I like stuff that's like more difficult, more of a departure. You can find my demo reel on IMDb and kind of see some of the voices that I do. It's I started off my first job in LA doing voices. I did voices on King of the Hill.
It's fun.
Yeah. And I tend to like, I do voices for stuff, but I tend to really like to do voices where I can do voices with comedy.
Mhm.
And the other, God, I wish I could talk to you about the other two projects. 'Cause they're
Soon we'll have you back.
Yeah, we'll bring
both
it back.
voiceover. They're both voiceover projects, and they're both really cool. So I'll keep you updated on those, and
Yeah,
hopefully we
that
can
sounds
talk
exciting.
about them soon.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, next question is one of our more fun questions. It's always fun to see what people answer. What is something no one knows about you that you wished more people did know? And then keep this as whatever you would like to say, whatever you're comfortable with, family friendly.
Oh, wow, that's a difficult question.
We
I'm
like
pretty
we
much
like having some difficult ones up there.
I'm pretty much an open book, and the first thing that jumped to mind would be that I'm like a kitty lover. Like I love all animals, but like I love cat.
That's awesome.
But your question was something that they don't know about me that I want them to know. And if you know me at all or look at my Facebook or whatever, it doesn't take you long to realize this guy really likes cats. I live a pretty Spartan life. I'm pretty simple. I like to eat good food. I like my little furry baby, my wife, and I like working. So I don't have too much that I would like people to know about me. Other than that's a hard question. At 3 a.m. I'll realize the answer.
That's how it always works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cats is
I'll leave
definitely a
it
good
at that.
answer, though. Always a good
Yeah.
answer. For babies.
I have 4 of them. I have Cubby.
Oh.
Cubby and Izzy are my 2 twins. They're not identical. They're a boy and the girl, and one's a Lynx Point and one's a Lynx Point ragdoll. And
Ooh.
then I have Meatball, who is a Tuxie.
That's awesome.
And then I have Lita, who's a little Maine Coon. And it's funny because when I talk to non-cat people, they're like, "Oh, that's very pretentious. Did you go to a breeder for them?" And I'm like, "No, that's just what they are. I got them all out of trash cans."
Those are such
I love
great
that.
cat
I
names
love
too.
the names.
They're fabulous. And there's such a fun assortment of kitties.
Yeah, they're all and they have huge personalities and they love Transformers. They love to they
Good,
love
good.
to jump up on the counter and knock my Transformers off.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. So I'm gonna have to like when they come out with like the Shockwave, I'm gonna have to buy all of them, and then my cats are gonna be like, "We are going to break all your toys."
Oh my
You
goodness.
you get a shockwave, one for each of them, and then one for yourself. You put on the highest part of the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they will look at that one and be like, "Why can't we have that one?"
That one's better, right?
That one's
Yeah.
obviously better.
You should get them some Halloween Shockwave costumes because it's coming up. I've heard from the
Totally.
humans.
That'd be so fun.
They'll be like, "Father is denying us that Shockwave for some reason. There must be food in it."
Well, we're getting
That's
ready for
awesome.
our last couple questions. Clickbait has been poking me on the side and would like to circle back to
Absolutely.
one question that didn't quite get answered. Clickbait, what was that
Okay.
question?
It was during the recording process of you playing Shockwave. Did you have any favorite moments or lines either in recording or that you saw on screen?
Yeah, let's see about. I mean, I hate to say, oh, the moments that I had because I'm very, I'm very proud of. I've seen the movie now 7 times, and I feel like the audience responded to the couple scenes I had, especially like, it makes me very proud to like share the screen with such talented and accomplished actors. There's that aspect. There's the fact that the script is funny, and I got the opportunity to deliver some of those funny lines. And through Josh Cooley's direction, I feel like we made it something fans could get a laugh at, but it served the story. It wasn't just pushing for
Hmm.
comedy for the sake of comedy. The scene that you referenced earlier regarding my poor eye. Um, that those who have watched it, they will understand what I'm talking about. That one was fun, was a fun scene. Not just me, but like the setup to it and the
Hmm.
everything around that scene I thought was fun. And is also, there's something to be said about it's kind of like the thing of you think of like somebody like George Washington crossing the Potomac, but you never think of like, the jokes that were made that morning when all the guys are freezing and it's uncomfortable, and it's like those moments actually happen. That's what happens in life. Like,
Hmm.
Mhm.
so seeing the evolution and him evolving, and Orion Pax, like that moment, like seeing him sort of have one of those moments was kind of fun. So I
That's
think
awesome.
that there were a lot, man. There were a lot of
Yeah.
There were.
Yeah.
I had
the
so much fun watching that movie. Everything was like a one-liner. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
It's a pretty good time.
I mean,
I'm
everybody has seen it from the trailers, but I think the first time Optimus transformed, which is another scene I was blessed to be in, but his thing was I thought that was a funny moment
Yeah, that's fun.
that I really enjoyed.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Shockwave, and I'm not
Yeah,
saying this
same.
just because we're in a Q&A with you, but I really love it when Alita asks why was he muffled, and he's like, when he was unconscious, he's like, especially when he was unconscious, he wouldn't stop
Oh my
talking.
gosh.
So that's one of my favorite lines. It's just
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely one of my favorite. Like I said, it's hard to choose between the ones, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was a great moment. I'm hoping, like, kind of circling back to one of your other questions, like about me, the future. I'm really interested to see the dynamic between Shockwave and some of the other characters, maybe
Hmm.
getting more fleshed out, and the relationship and conflicts with people like Alita and B.
Yeah.
So that's really into me. I think.
Super
Absolutely.
fun.
So winding us down, is that the right word? Winding us down, bringing us back.
Bringing us back. Bring
You're
us back.
bringing us back. That's the word. Pretty wielded. Are there any questions for us?
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions because
Oh my gosh.
no, I do, but again, 3 a.m. I'll wake up and I'll text you if I can get service to
Yeah, you have
Cybertron.
our contacts. Feel free to
Yeah,
message us anytime. 3 a.m.,
we
that's
pay we
fine.
pay
No,
for the high-speed Wi-Fi at Swerve's here.
nice.
Mhm.
No, just when I've spoken to Clickbait in the past and her wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure you guys, that's a really cool thing for me because to learn more about this world that I don't know, and not just to learn about things that are in the canon, but to get like really in-depth opinions and analysis is like very cool for me to talk to people that have that ability to kind of like talk about it on a deeper level, which helps me then kind of like understand. I really
Mhm.
appreciate
Yeah, it's fun. Good
It's
times.
quite it's quite an entertaining group we have here. We've
We
often
do.
late at night we'll just like so this character we'll just start diving into this character and talk about like the different meanings on like their actions and what why they would have done something or why they wouldn't have done something. It's
It's so
it's it's
fun
a
to
good time.
analyze and to, kind of get inside their head and really break down what they're doing and what it means for the other characters. It's a really fun time.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I also I don't want to brag again, just making it clear. I know you mentioned that you haven't read the comics before, but I think you would really find interesting the Shockwave comics for the IDW and the
Mm-hmm.
2005 continuity, just because it's
Yeah.
very different compared to the Shockwave we've seen and how he becomes the Shockwave. I think
It
you'd
really
really,
is.
really like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I when I was a kid, I would read them sort of like not religiously, but just like casually. But again, they're not what we have sometimes. You can tell that writing them more for a discerning audience, more compelling, more
Mm-hmm.
for fans who long for more in-depth stories. But yeah, I started checking out a lot of the stuff that I wasn't, unfortunately, an eBay cart full of all this stuff. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh, it's awesome.
but yeah, hopefully by the next one, I will get my white belt in
You're doing
Shockwave
great. You're doing great.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Well, talking about socials and communicating, where can the listeners find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Linktree. Those are the main ones I use. I have a YouTube channel called The Loop Podcast, which I'm starting. There's nothing up yet
Ooh,
right now,
fun.
but if you type in my name, if you have difficulty finding my name, go to imdb.com and look up Transformers 1, and you'll find my name. And then you can use that to search Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Say hello, follow me, friend me, like me, whatever you want to do. I've just started being active on the social medias, so I don't have like a huge following or anything like that, but I'm pretty active, so if you say hi, I will say hi back, most likely, unless I miss it.
Fantastic. And
Awesome.
we'll also have all those links in the descriptions below.
Hmm.
Click it. You have a
Cool.
final question.
I do. I do have the last question. Before we go, are there any words of wisdom or anything special you would like to say to the listeners?
Oh wow. Yeah, you know what? So this role has been a dream on top of the fact that it's just an amazing project. The fact that it was connected to my childhood, it's just I still feel like I'm every day. But I will tell you that I had had sort of a downturn in working and was displeased with where I was. And then I booked a film in mid 2023, and it's sort of like it really invigorated me and reminded me of why I do this. And I met a great group of people. I mentioned the film The Unexpecteds. That was the film that I was on. And people will, if you're in the industry, you might know this, but not a lot of people outside. So when you do a movie, you are basically like with each other a lot. And it kind of becomes like camp when you're a kid, where you would make
It's
camp
awesome.
friends. You would make camp friends and they would be like your best friend. And then you would leave camp and you would instantly like kind of lose them in life. And it was this weird thing of like, especially before social media and all that, it was just that thing. You just drifted away from people that you felt like you were super close to. And that happens often on film. But I've stayed in touch with this group and it has been a really sweet thing. However, after I did that film, from having the high of that film, I did not so much as like get an audition. Like it was barren. I'm exaggerating. I had auditions, but it felt like it felt like there was a just nothing. And, I really started to doubt and question things and really get down on myself and really, probably the first time in doing this, like question whether or not I should quit. And it was 10:02 on a Tuesday, and I got a call from my agent, and she said, I can't tell you what it is, but it's something big, and you don't necessarily have it, but they want you for it, but it's not for sure. And it was just like, what? And she was like, do you want it? And Sandy, my agent, she's amazing, AVO talent. And I said, absolutely, I want it. I don't know what it is, but I want it. So I've told the story a couple times, but I'll tell it again because I think it's important. So I was on pins and needles for about 2 hours, and she calls me and she said, oh, you have a booking. And I said, great. What is it? Can you tell me now? And she said, no, I can't. I still can't tell you what it is. And I said, but I'm booked, right? And she goes, no, this is something else. So for actors to book one thing in a day is amazing. I ended up booking not two, but actually three. I got another call a little bit later.
It's awesome.
Booking three things, and it kind of was a wake-up call to me. I've always had this saying, like as actors, we hope, And that's the thing. It's like you never know what tomorrow brings. And, you know, it's a tough business and there's a lot of rejection and there's a lot of waiting for that opportunity. And it was an amazing day that was kind of like a slap in the face to like wake me up and be like, hey, Jason, look this crazy thing that happened. And like, you can never work again and you at least accomplished a little bit of something that you can be proud of. So just keep going, hoping, keep believing, and don't let those things and the doubt get you down. So I've tried to maintain that and spread that to people that I meet, especially ones that are in acting, but also not in acting, people in general in life that are down in the doldrums and don't feel good about things. It's like, man, everything can change in a minute. And especially, you know, unfortunately, everything can change in a minute both ways, but focus on the good and focus on what can change for the good, because that's, you know, it is a great feeling to realize that there's always that hope.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's very important.
Wow.
I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I want to leave you with this. And we had a Q&A with Benny Latham. She is in the Transformers Earthspark TV show.
Mhm.
And we were discussing that her character and all the characters in there are going to be the G1 for a new generation. And I think this movie will also be like the 86 movie for a new
Yeah.
generation. So your
Absolutely.
Shockwave is going to be, you know, the first one new
Impactful.
generations meet and be like, that is the Shockwave I grew up with. So I think you
Yeah.
did an amazing job and should be
You
proud
really
of that.
did.
Thank you. That means a great deal. Like I said, like I met a really sweet little girl. You can look her up on my Facebook at the screening. I say that because she's a minor. I don't know if I should say her name, the podcast or whatever, but I met a sweet little girl in her so that both had just seen that. And it was real touching to just be able to like, you know, I look at little kids in this situation. I'm like, wow, like if I was a little kid seeing this movie and then kind of like getting to meet one of the, that would awesome. And I know what a responsibility and I know what an honor it is to play a character like this and have that ability to, you know, say hi, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
to people. Say, I see you and thank you for letting me do a character for you. But it was awesome.
That's really cool.
I love
That's
it.
really awesome. Yeah.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us on
Thank
the
you.
podcast. We hope you had
Thank
a
you.
great time because I know I did.
I had a blast.
It was
It was awesome.
absolutely great getting to know you, learning about you, and asking you all these questions and hearing and listening to all your answers. Thank you
Mhm.
so much.
My pleasure. I had a great time. Thank you for having me on. Hopefully I'll be back and
Yeah.
Yeah.
feel
That'd be
feel free
great.
to reach out to me anytime you visit Earth or, you know, anytime you want to send a transmission my way.
We'll do.
Sounds
Will
And
do.
great.
For
hopefully
sure. For
we'll
sure.
see each other at TFCon LA next year.
Yeah.
That'd be
That'll be
awesome.
Yeah.
fun.
That'd
Let's
be
do
great.
it.
Sounds
And
good,
for
guys.
you listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, till all are one.
So all are
Till all
one.
are one.